G'day legends and fellow A24 lovers, if you're tuning in, welcome to Hesflix. Today I'm going to be reviewing the new A24 film Tuesday, which is the directorial debut of Daina, Pusić. The start of this review is going to be spoiler free, and when I do get into spoilers, I'll make sure to give you a big red flashing warning. Okay, so the film synopsis. A mother and her teenage daughter must confront death when it arrives in the form of an astonishing talking bird. Now guys, this is a big call, but I have never sat in a movie theater or movie screening before and heard this many people crying around me. There were sniffly noses everywhere. Straight off the bat, this is just your classic weird and wacky A24 film that you just love to see get made. It's one of those movies that's got like a weird sort of idea or concept at its core. Some might say gimmick, but for me, I found this really interesting and intriguing. Ever since I'd seen the trailer, I'd had this on my watch list. And I've got to say, overall, I think the film was pretty decent. So the idea of death personified into the form of an ancient parrot with an epic rumbly voice is personally something that I'm 100% down for. And I really don't understand why lads are legitimately hating on this film. The trailer maybe sells this film as very sad, emotional, a deep character piece, you know, a lot of human drama, and I do think in certain moments this film really does deliver on that promise, hence all the crying people around me in the cinema. But I probably would agree with some criticism that it is a little bit tonally confused at times. There are moments in here that are pretty confronting when you actually think about what's going on, or even visually confronting at times, but then that'll happen. Then suddenly there's like a funny sort of wholesome moment, and then suddenly it's very sad again. So those kind of wild tonal shifts are probably quite disorienting for some people, myself included at times. It didn't massively bother me or take me out of the film, but I'd probably agree with my friend Hado when he said that it would have been nicer if the film did pick some certain moments where it could just sit, especially in the sadness, just a little bit longer, a touch longer. Overall, I did feel like the pacing did drag on here at certain times, especially towards the end. But that being said, there's some moments in here that I absolutely love. They had me laughing out loud at a movie like I haven't in quite a long time. Tuesday definitely has aspects of it that will remind you of Studio Ghibli films, and I think that's something that's pretty unique and was very interesting to witness in a live action format. There are also some moments in here that were almost a bit sci-fi or sort of like apocalyptic-y world building kind of ideas that I did not expect to see with this, and I thought that was really cool. Perhaps again this contributed to the whole thing feeling a bit confused for some people, but for me those ideas were pretty interesting. Some people also seem to have a problem here with Julia Louis-Dreyfus's performance. Now, when I watch movies, I am normally quite forgiving of acting, but that being said, I think she did a pretty good job and she was a pretty enjoyable screen presence. I think she was pretty good. Alright guys, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the film and you're planning on doing so, just skip ahead here to get my final star rating for the film. It definitely raises some quite scary existential themes about death, grief, acceptance, and does so to varying degrees of success, I would say. I think a big flaw about this film is that it kind of tells you what to think about these big ideas, rather than leaving a bit of nuance and ambiguity about what it's trying to say. The whole idea that it presents towards the end of the film, that there's no God and that any form of afterlife is just how you're remembered by other people, personally is a philosophy that I disagree with. It is perfectly okay for the film to explore those ideas and present that view, but I do feel like they didn't really get into the meat of what that actually means. I think the film explores the idea of death as a moment that everyone has to confront and face in quite a good way. I think perhaps it could have sort of delved a bit more into the existential and philosophical consequences of that though. It sort of just presents this view on life and death, and then suddenly the film's over. I know it's just a movie, it can't do everything, but I think it would have served the story, the narrative, the themes overall a little bit better if they just left it a little bit more open-ended towards the end. If they'd found a way to do that, I think personally I would have just found overall the whole thing just a little bit more cathartic than in the end it did feel like for me. So overall, I'm giving Tuesday a 3 out of 5. Definitely ignore what the haters are saying. Go and check out this film. It's well worth your time. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty wacky. That's what we love from A24.